Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be continuing the best international bands series here, counting down my top 10 favorite German heavy metal bands of all time. Like with every list we do here on the channel, this is not some definitive countdown, just some of my favorites. So, that said, coming in at number 10 here, let's go with Powerwolf. Starting things off with some German power metal here, pretty unique from other power metal bands in the scene for the use of organ sounds. The band, founded in 2003 by members of Red Aim, and I don't think they've ever made a bad record as far as I'm concerned. You know, and I said their album run from Bible of the Beast through the Sacrament of Sin is one of the best 5 album runs in power metal history. Their new album, Wake Up the Wicked, is awesome as well. Definitely one of my favorites of the summer, looking back now as, you know, it's almost September. So starting us off at number 10, going to have to go with the Wolves here. Powerwolf, awesome band, you know, great catalog as well. Couldn't leave them off this list here, getting us started at number 10. At number 9, we have Ramstein. People get mad when I call them Ramstein. So anyway, some people might think this band is a bit overrated, but I really never understood that. You know, just because a band is successful doesn't necessarily mean they suck. And, you know, I've always been a big fan of Rammstein, one of those entertaining live acts in all of metal, and their stage show is insane, but I don't think it should overshadow the fact that they make great music too, and they have a lot more than just Du Hast in their catalog. Fronted by Till Lindemann and formed in 1994, Rammstein were a huge part of the 90s industrial scene and are still going strong here with Zeet from 2022. Great record here. Till Lindemann's solo stuff is fantastic as well, and I think he sounds more comfortable outside of the Rammstein sound, doing his own thing on the side. And again, some people might roll their eyes at Rammstein, call them overrated, but, you know, maybe too gimmicky. I never felt that way personally. In fact, I'd probably put them on my industrial Mount Rushmore. Following that up now at number 8, let's go with Destruction, one of the big 4 of Teutonic Thrash. Destruction were highly influential, not just to thrash metal, but also to the pioneering black metal scene. And, you know, personally, I think their early stuff is their best work, specifically, you know, Eternal Devastation and Release from Agony. They remain, though, largely underrated in the decade to follow, as the band spent much of the 90s self-producing without a record label. Then there's that whole least successful Human Cannonball disaster that I think is better to just not talk about, considering this is a positive list here, but just going to glance over that. The band just released a new single, No Kings, No Masters, which is killer, for their upcoming album in 2025, which right now is one of my most anticipated releases of the next year. For number 7, we have another one of the big 4 here with Sodom, a crucial band to the thrash metal scene for helping to merge thrash and death metal together, and, you know, like Destruction, were heavily influential to the black metal scene as well. All around one of those important extreme metal bands ever, and despite going through numerous lineup changes over the years, bassist and lead vocalist Tom Angel Ripper has remained the only consistent member of the band since their formation in 1981. Dude is thrash metal royalty, and so are Sodom, one of the best-selling thrash metal acts of all time, coming in at number 7 here on the list. Number 6, I'm going to switch back to power metal here with Blind Guardian, true pioneers of power metal and speed metal as well, formed in 1984, and the evolution of their sound is really cool to examine in hindsight. Their first 2 records, Battalions of Fear and Follow the Blind, are more speed metal, but then over time the band would begin to write more complex music like Tales from the Twilight World, their 3rd studio album, and one of my favorites from them. And then over the years, the band incorporated more orchestral elements to their sound. Also pretty unique for the usage of folk instruments that add a signature element to their power ballads specifically. And, you know, they just released the re-recording, I should say, of Somewhere Far Beyond, which I didn't really think was necessary, to be honest, but the band's last proper album was The God Machine from 2022, one of my favorites from that year. Just a really stellar record. Top 5 now, let's go with Tankard, another one of the more consistent bands here on this list, and another member of the big 4 of the Teutonic Thrash. Tankard, though different from their big 4 counterparts by centering their lyrics primarily around drinking, whereas other 3 in the big 4 have, you know, covered more complex and diverse topics in their songwriting. But if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's a working formula for sure. Chemical Invasion is still one of my favorite German metal albums of all time. You know, they're still killing it. They played alongside the rest of the big 4 for the first time ever back in July, which was really cool to see. Coming in at number 4, it's the last one from the big 4 of Teutonic Thrash. Of course, I had to put Kreator in the top 5 here. They're another band who, you know, have changed a number of times over the years. You know, they changed their sound a lot, from a Venom-inspired speed metal sound to thrash to industrial and gothic metal in the 90s, and more melodic, I'd say, since Violent Revolution from 2001. But the only 2 original members that remain in the band are frontman Mil Petrosa and drummer Venter. You know, of course, 2 of the most consistent musicians in all of thrash, right? Fantastic musicians in their own right, and they really have kept Kreator alive, and it's been awesome to see. Their most recent album, Hate Uber Alles, from 2022, was not one of my favorite records of the year, but it was a grower for sure, so it's great to see the band like Kreator still making really strong albums and remaining prevalent in the metal scene, you know, 40 years or so into their career now. Top 3 now, we have The Scorpions, formed nearly 60 years ago. That's crazy. 60 years old, and the band are still going strong to this day with Rock Believer from a few years ago. I saw them live on that tour, and Klaus Mein's voice is still in fantastic shape. Not to mention Michael Schenker is one of the most fun live guitarists I've ever seen. The band's classic lineup did their best work from 1979's Love Drive through Crazy World from 1990, and the band did hit a bit of a rough patch in, the mid-90s, but I really do enjoy every era of the band, including the more underrated early stuff with Uli John Roth on guitar. Number 2, let's go with Helloween, one of the founding fathers of power metal. Could easily be my number 1 pick, but, my top 5 are really close together. The band burst onto the scene with their debut Walls of Jericho before the addition of Michael Kiske for Keeper of the Seven Keys, which really took the band to the next level in my opinion. Now, personally, I'm not much of a fan of the Andy Darius era, and a lot of people ask, why? And the answer is, not really sure. I just never really took to it, and much more of a Michael Kiske guy, although I will say I Live For Your Pain is one of my favorite Helloween deep cuts, a great song from the Darius era, but thankfully Kiske returned for the Pumpkins United tour, and then self-titled from 2021, one of the best albums from this year. Probably would have been my favorite if Iron Maiden didn't release Senjutsu the same year, but the band have been firing on all cylinders ever since, and, maybe best as they've ever been. So it's great to see them at the top of their game now. Their last record is one of their all-time best as far as I'm concerned, and I can't wait to see how they follow it up. I read somewhere that they're working on it now, and it should be done by 2025, so that's really exciting for sure. Coming in at number 2 here, let's go with the legendary Helloween. And finally, coming in at number 1, in my opinion, my personal favorite German heavy metal band of all time has got to be none other than Accept. And maybe some people wouldn't have them as high on the list here, but I love Accept. Initially very much influenced by AC/DC before really finding their sound on Breaker. They went on an absolute tear in the 80s with classic after classic with Restless and Wild, Balls to the Wall, Metal Heart, and Russian Roulette. The band did incredible work with vocalist Udo Dirkschneider, and then years later with Mark Tornillo, which was one of the best metal comebacks of all time with Blood of the Nations. So 2 great eras there of the band, some fantastic albums in the lot there from both of those singers, and so definitely a shout out as well to Udo Dirkschneider's solo work, which is very underrated and very much in the same vein as Accept. I saw Udo live several years ago on a tour where he was supposedly retiring a lot of the classic Accept material that he usually does in his set. Long story short, he did not end up retiring those material, but still great tour, fantastic show, and that was really the tour and the show that got me into Accept and familiarized me with their classic material. Accept founder Wolf Hoffmann is a great player, fantastic guitarist, and very consistent and huge in pioneering neoclassical metal, so crazy to think that the band have been around for so long, have impacted metal in such a way, and remain so underrated, but they've undergone a lot of changes over the years, now to the point that Wolf Hoffmann is the only original member left, but still are one of metal's most consistent acts, and, still that signature sound is, so easy to recognize, still going strong with their most recent album, Humanoid, from earlier this year, one of my favorites of 2024 so far for sure. So that wraps up my list here of my top 10 favorite German heavy metal bands of all time, which you guys can see right over here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and be sure to let me know down in the comment section below what are your thoughts on my picks and what are some of your favorite German metal bands of all time. I want to hear from you. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.